The story of Biddy Early from County Clare in Ireland. In County Clare, there's a village called Feakle. And in Feakle, years ago, there lived an old woman whose name was Biddy. Biddy is an Irish word. It simply means grandmother or old woman. And she was a renowned folk healer. Biddy Early knew every plant and root and herb and bark and berry that grew all around her. And she also knew how to gather those things and how to mix them so they could be a healing concoction, a healing potion, an elixir of some kind. But she was also a bit of a counselor and a clairvoyant. Many people said that when Biddy was a youth, she had performed some benefit, offered some boon to the wee folk, the fairy folk, the good people, as they're called. And if you provide even one small benefit to the wee folk, they will return that tenfold. And they did. Biddy Early was a renowned and popular folk healer. She was sought out. People came to her from far, far and wide. But on this particular day, when she was quite old as dirt, she herself would have said, she was in the front room of her cottage. She lived in a whitewashed cottage at the edge of the village, the whitewashed cottage with a thatched roof. And you could see her now in the front room. She was sweeping up the front room when a knock came to the door. And Biddy shuffled over to the door and she opened it up. And who was standing right in front of her? Death himself. It was Death there with the long black robe and the scythe for harvesting human souls there. Nothing beneath him but bones. And he said, "Grandmother Biddy Early, I've come for you now, because you know that every person has only so many years and months and weeks and days and hours and minutes and seconds, and all your time has come to an end, and you'll be coming with me now." Oh, and she said, "Well, Death, I'm a bit surprised. I feel fine, but I am old. And the fact of the matter is, I've lived a long life, a good life. I have loved and I've been loved and I've seen many, many beautiful things. And so I'll be coming with you, Death, just as soon as I finish sweeping out the front room here, because I'm not leaving a dirty house behind." Well, I don't think you seem to understand here, grandmother. I'm Death, and you'll be coming with me now. And she said, "Well, there's something I don't think you understand here, young man. I've always respected the dead, and I would expect a bit of respect from you now. I'm not leaving a dirty house behind. And if you were to come in here and help me, and instead of quit being such a layabout out there, the two of us might get out of here all the sooner." And Death said, "Oh, Jesus," for he knew this was a woman you weren't going to argue with. So didn't Death himself come into Biddy Early's cottage, and he took the broom and he tried as best as he could to sweep things up, but he wasn't used to manual labor of any kind. And by now Biddy Early had gone to the kitchen. And from the kitchen she called out, "Death, Death, you're not much good at that. Come in here and try your hand at this. Take this knife and cut up these potatoes and these carrots, because I'm going to make a stew. I don't want to leave any food go to waste." And Death said, "Oh, Jesus." And there he was now, kind of fumbling around trying to cut up potatoes and carrots, but he wasn't much good at that either. And Biddy Early said, "What am I going to do with you here? I tell you what, Death, put the knife down, go into the front room and stand by the door. Because you see, guests are going to be coming soon. It's actually a party tonight. It was actually supposed to be a birthday party tonight, my birthday party, obviously my last birthday party. And I want you to go to the door and welcome the guests as they come." And Death said, "You want me to welcome guests?" And Biddy said, "Well, you can't sweep. You can't cut up vegetables. Go out there, Death, and make yourself useful." And Death said, "Well, all right." And so Death went out to the front door. And sure enough, the guests started coming. They come up the steps and open the door, and Death would say, "Welcome." People looked up. But they came into the house. After all, this was Ireland, and people had seen far stranger things than this. But after a while, well, you know how it is. People were having a pint and downing a shot, and they were talking and laughing and talking. Everyone was talking away. Well, everyone save for Death. Nobody really knew what to say to him, and he didn't know what to say to them. But after a while, the food was served, and then the birthday cake came out, and it was grandmother Biddy Early's grandson. He was about 9 or 10. He brought a little piece of cake over to Death, and he said, I brought this for you, sir. And Death said, well, I'm Death. I don't eat any longer. And the boy said, it's birthday cake. Everybody eats that. It's for my grandmother. Here. And Death said, well, all right. And didn't he take the cake, and didn't he take a bite there, and he ate it? But, he was nothing more than bones beneath. And so the cake sort of bounced upon his ribs and just fell to the ground. And of course, who noticed this? All the children. And there was soon a long line of them. They all wanted to feed Death, But he was a good sport about it. He ate all the food they gave him. He even drank the punch they served him until there were puddles of that and piles of food at his feet. But by now, the fiddles had come out, and the pipes and the penny whistles, and the guitars, and pretty soon everyone was up and they were dancing away. Dancing here and there, and everyone was up and dancing. And it might surprise you to know, at some point, somebody walked over there to the corner and somebody pulled Death out onto the dance floor. And Death started dancing with that person. And after a while, someone else danced with Death. And after a while, someone else did. And all night long, everyone danced and danced and danced. Death danced with all of them, and they danced with Death. And the strangest thing was this. That party, it lasted longer. It seemed to be more festive than any party grandmother Biddy Early had ever had. And she had had a number of parties. But it finally did come to an end. And when it did, all the guests, they left. And Biddy turned to Death and she said, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for being patient with me and for letting me have my last birthday party. And I'm ready to go with you now, Death. And so didn't she extend her hand out to him? And didn't he extend that cold, bony hand out of his to her? But as he did, he stopped. And Death, he said, grandmother, I tell you what, how about if I come for you next year at this time instead of this year? And she said, well, Death, whatever it is that you want would be fine. No, grandmother, I'll come for you next year. I can't remember when I've had such a good time. I rarely get invited to parties, let alone having people dance with me and such. I'll come for you next year. And so indeed, he said farewell, but he came back the next year. But that year, it was a lot like the first year, except for the fact he was a little better at sweeping and cutting up vegetables. And you know what? Those parties with Death and Biddy Early went on for years and years and years and years. And the people of that village became quite well known as being quite insightful, quite wise, quite empathetic, quite compassionate, a little bit weird as well. And some would say, well, perhaps it's because we all dance with Death on a rather regular basis, and he dances with all of us. And even though he's not the most graceful of dancing partners, he's certainly no one that we're afraid of. Well, that's what they told me to tell all of you. But they also wanted me to make sure I told you. There's another party coming up real soon, and all of us are invited. And that is the tale of Grandmother Biddy Early Dances with Death. Thank you.